guys, so today we're going to work on glutes. We're going to be using mini bands. So there's two different types of mini bands. You can get the elastic ones, which are fairly cheap, or if you want to invest in some, these are a bit more comfortable. The rubber ones tend to roll up and they can pinch your skin. These ones are a lot more comfortable. They've actually got grip on the inside as well, so they don't slide and roll up and down. So they're both going to be just as effective, but the fabric ones tend to be a bit more comfortable to wear, that's all. So that's what I'm going to use today. So we're going to focus on training the glutes, obviously. So the important thing that you've got to remember when you're training glutes is pelvic tilt. Okay, so I can't stress this enough. It's really important that your pelvis is rotated so that your lower back is nice and flat. Okay, I see too many people training glutes with bands and with cable machines, and they overextend and they curve their lower back. Okay, so when you're trying to do band exercises for your glutes, if you get an ache in your lower back or pain in your lower back, it's because you're overextending and the movement is coming from your hips and not from the glutes. Okay, it's really important that you try and pull your belly button and your sternum close together. Okay, so that's going to rotate your hips. You've got a nice flat lower back, and you hold that position for all the exercises we do today. Okay, so we're going to start off with a nice simple one. You're going to put the band around your knees. Okay, just above the knee, and we're going to work on side lunges. So I'm going to do it on the spot and move back and forth. Depending on how much room you've got, you can do this in kind of 10 or 15 meter lengths, yeah? So, first position, most important position, tuck those hips under, okay? I like to squat slightly and hinge forward just a little bit, yeah? Keep the balance nice and tight, always remembering that lower back's nice and flat. Slight turn out on the toes, but not too much. And the goal here is to keep the distance between your knees as much as possible, okay? So I'm going to step to my left. Now I'm actually training my right glute, okay? So we're not training the left one to push out, although it's being worked on. The primary exercise here is on the right glute, stopping this knee from caving, okay? So if when you do this exercise, your training knee comes in, then you're not training that glute, okay? So the important thing here, hips under, slight squat, slight hinge forward, toes turned out, just as a recap. Focus on keeping this back knee out and you're training this glute, okay? And you come back in and you can go the other way. Notice the tempo and the pace that I'm moving and pausing in between each one so I can make sure that my form is consistent, okay? You can speed these up, but I prefer to have a nice slow tempo, making sure you can feel it in the right position. And if at any point your lower back starts to ache, think about where your hips are, yeah? Remember, keep that belly button and your sternum close together. Step side to side. Okay, and you should already be starting to feel the burn there. Good. Okay, what we're going to do now is drop the band down, and we're actually going to stand on the band so it's around your toes. Now this is going to be for the same movement, and it's going to make it slightly harder, okay, because now the band is trying to turn my toes in and my glute is going to be externally rotating my toes, okay? So it's the same start position in that squat, and we're coming out into a step. Now depending on how strong your band is, depends how big the step is you can take, okay? This is a similar movement to what we just did, but it's more challenging. So if you struggled with the last one, just stay doing that. Good, okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a seat. If you've got a chair or a bench, we're going to bring the band back up to our knees. You're going to put the bottoms of your feet together, the soles of your feet, 90-degree bend in your knees so your heels are just underneath your hips, and we're focusing on driving your knees out with an isometric hold. Okay, so it's not an in and out and in and out. You push out, not as far as you can, it doesn't have to be all the way. Okay, we're just going out into a stretch position and holding for 3 to 5 seconds before you come back in. You should be feeling this already. Okay, good. So now we're going to come into some bridges. So you want your bottoms of your shoulder blades, the pointy bits at the bottom, tucked on the edge of your bench or your chair. You're going to start, same with 90-degree bend in your knees when you're at the top of the bridge, okay? Tuck your chin, toes pointed out slightly, but with your toes off the floor. You should be pushing through your heels. If you drive through your toes, you're going to be using your quad muscles. If you lift your toes up and drive through your heels, then you're going to be using your glutes more, okay? Now the important thing in this position, as I mentioned, is to keep your hips tucked under, but also don't let the movement come from your back, okay? So a common mistake I see here is people doing this. Okay, now all that movement is coming from my lower back because my chest is pivoting on the bench, okay? So what I want is to tuck my chin. I'm going to keep my chest as stable as I can. It's going to move a little bit, but I don't want too much movement. And I want the movement to come from my hips. So drop my hips down, focusing on bringing that hip angle up at the top. Now the important thing here is don't overextend. I can get my hips higher than this, but I compensate my lower back. Okay, so when I get in this position, my lower back is rounded, I can already feel it aching. So I come to a neutral position where I've got a straight line and I'm curving my hips that way, bringing my belly button and my sternum close together. Okay, the goal isn't to go as high as you can, the goal is to challenge the glutes. And you put more challenge to the glutes in this position than you do here. Okay, so down to the bottom, keep your knees out nice and wide. Up to the top, chin tucked. See, my chest isn't moving that much on the bench, it's not pivoting. The movement is coming from my hips, toes off the floor, driving through your heels. Pause at the bottom, pause at the top. Good. Okay, so we're going to drop the band down slightly now so it sits over the top of your kneecaps. And now we're going to do some positions on all fours on the floor. So, we're going to start with kickbacks. So, start position, as always, hips under. Okay, I'm going to keep saying it because it's really important. Tuck your hips under, flat lower back. Make sure your wrists are under your shoulders because you don't want to risk injury in your shoulders if your hands are out in front. Okay, so nice safe position. Tuck your toes, and then we're going to straighten. We're going to kick one foot up towards the ceiling without allowing our lower back to round. Okay, so hips under, kick up towards the ceiling. Now I'm keeping the angle of my knee consistent and I'm driving the sole of my foot up towards the ceiling. Similar position or similar rule to when we're doing the glute bridges. I can go higher by compensating my lower back. We don't want that. Okay. Lower back nice and flat. That's as far as I need to go. I don't need to go that far. Okay? And then we're going to come back, make sure the band's tucked underneath your kneecap because that pins it in place. I'm going to go on the other side. Good. Okay, back to the start position. Now we're going to do fire hydrants or dirty dogs. There's a few different names for them, but we're going to come up to the side. So keep your knee angle the same, and we're coming out into that position. Again, depends how strong your band is and how thick your band is, depends how far you might be able to go. I'm at the limit of the elastic on this band here. Again, making sure that your lower back stays rounded. The other point to note in this movement is not to let your hips rotate, okay? So if I come to this position here, if I allow my hips to rotate, I can get higher. Okay, so if you can feel your body rotating and your hips rotating that way, then you're losing the contraction in the glutes, okay? So hips under, flat lower back, leg comes out. Doesn't have to go as high as you could possibly go. It's more about the slow tempo position and the hold at the top, okay? So check your start position, check your wrists under your shoulders, tuck your hips. I'm going to go the other way. Okay. Nice, good job guys. So that's a demonstration video and the correct technique for all the movements. If you look in the text of the video, I'll give you some reps and some timings to follow through that circuit, so you can go and do a full workout using those movements. Cheers guys, enjoy.